And good morning. Happy Saturday, October 2nd, 2021. I'm Willie. I want to thank you all for being here. I do appreciate each and every one of you. If you're out there and you can hear me, hit that thumbs up button if you would. Let the algorithm know you're interested in this. Good morning, Ressie. I see time to grab a JD. I don't know if that's Jack Daniels. I don't know what you're grabbing. I think it's a different, we're in a way different time zone. But a couple of things this morning. Now it is actually now officially 8 o'clock, according to my Fitbit. So, good morning, Richard, T and Bighorn, Doug, Zach, Mike, Roger. Good morning to everyone. All right, so a little bit of housekeeping, and I'll repeat this towards the end of the stream too. But down in the description, there's a link to the newsletter that was sent out earlier in the week about training. There's been some questions. I also released a video this week about the training, and it seems as though there might have been some confusion. The Ubiquity training is going to be a one day, an entire day, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central. Probably going to run later than that. Uh, that is a non-certification course and is going to be done virtually. Now, I'm taking interest for Grandstream certified professional training. And that training will be in November. If you read the newsletter, it gives you, or when you go to fill out the interest form, it tells you the week. And we're either thinking about a Monday, Tuesday, or a Thursday, Friday. But in order to actually be able to get that training off the ground, I can't just have two people, right? So that's why we've got the interest form. And once we have at least 10 people who say they are going to sign up for that training, then that will allow me to proceed, get a room scheduled, like a conference room, get a block rate for the hotel and things like that. Grandstream does not allow me to train you at the professional level remotely. There is hands-on, there's troubleshooting, things like that. So that has to be done in person. And then I actually proctor the exam on site. So back over to the comments. Good morning, Jeremy. Morning, Chad. DNS Service, Jacob Johnson. Hey, Tony the Quick Tech is in the house. Good morning, Tony. Good morning, James. Morning, Ralph. Morning, David Anderson. All right, everybody piling in. So the link, like I said, the link to the newsletter for the training, because I just had somebody last night, and I'm waiting for an email clarification. I may have the email already, but this person paid for the entire day of Ubiquity training and said, I'll take the 2-day Grandstream virtual. There is no 2-day Grandstream virtual training. So that is you will, assuming we get enough interest, you will fly to Peoria, Illinois, where you will be trained, certified, all that good stuff. So just a little house cleaning there. Morning, Martin. So the other thing that was kind of fun is so our oldest is enrolled in college and is doing computer networking, which is exciting for me. Doing computer networking as his major, and last night, asked me for help with subnetting and doing VLSM. So classful versus classless, and it was really fun to get to help him and kind of explain to him some of that stuff. So even though the teacher is teaching it, he just needed some clarification. That was really, I did enjoy that. All right, over to the comments. T and Bighorn says, boy, a lot of voice over IP services and carriers are having trouble with DDoS attacks this week. So yeah, and those are not as easy to defend against as people may think. I mean, when you're talking about 10, 20, 30,000 machines sending small amounts of data, it is difficult. It's my understanding that they've put some things in place to do some scrubbing of IPs and things like that. I don't know that. I know that I don't think any provider is 100% impervious to an attack, right? But I do think that some providers are built differently. If you saw the amount of voice over IP providers, and probably the attacks are going to keep, continuing. I'm signed up for the bandwidth.com status page, and I mean every day I'm getting multiple emails throughout the day. I mean, a lot of other carriers depend on bandwidth.com. And so you've seen other tweets, you've seen videos and things like that, because when bandwidth.com is taking a hit, then their downstream providers are also taking a hit. We don't use Voip.ms. Like I said, we had a couple customers on there. We use Telnex. And I mean, they could be targeted next, right? So here is the most important thing that you should be thinking about coming out of this is, what is your backup plan, right? If your voice provider gets DDoS, what is your backup plan? Um, we have a written plan, procedures, things like that. You could be looking at adding additional hardware. Adding an ATA that goes to Google Voice. Here's the most important thing for me when it comes to the phone system, and that is being able to dial 911, right? So when a DDoS takes down emergency services, that that is that is bad. That is, so you should always have, a backup plan in place for that. Inbound calls, you know, we can explain that, but when you can't pick up the phone and call emergency services, that becomes an issue. Um, so all right, over to the comments. Martin says, "Do you recommend Unify firewalls for dental offices, or is PFSense better?" Well, Martin, if you can give us a little bit more of an idea of what kind of feature set you're looking for, right? So you're going to see a lot of people will say, the USG's garbage, the USG's junk. We don't use them. No, we use the USGs. We do use the USGs, but guess what? We also use MikroTik, and we also use TP-Link, and we also use, Protectly boxes with OpenSense. I am a huge fan of the culture of the OpenSense project. They're a very welcoming community. I talk about this time and time again about how underwhelmed I was with the CEO of Netgate coming onto my Twitter and talking shit, being wrong about things, and then deleting it after I did a video about running PFSense on Protectly. And I talked to some people, and he very much doesn't want you running PFSense because Netgate is how they make money, and that's fine. But that was the last straw for me. So we do work on pre-existing PFSense. I'm not going to turn people away who need help. But all new installs, we are recommending OpenSense. Let's see. Yeah, Resi's in the land down under and says, "I saw the newsletter. There was nothing in that alluded to the grand stream being virtual. I think people see what they want to, what they want to think." Yeah. Oh, Tony, thanks. Tony says, "Lucky kid has a perfect in-house mentor." Yeah, so with that, my deal is sometimes I have to. I mean, you got to realize I've been doing this for a while, and so sometimes I have to slow down, take a step back, because you know how it is. You've been working on something so long, you tell people this is how you troubleshoot things, but you're already jumping from A to B to C while people are still on A, right? So it is awesome for me to be able to like step back, and the crazy thing about it is, and she's probably not watching this webcast, but one of my son's instructors, Kim, was actually one of my instructors like 20 years ago, right? So with college, I bounced around college and then finally had to get serious and finish it. Where my son is going, I never did finish my associate's degree because the money that was offered to me to actually work as a 17, 18-year-old kid, was pretty enticing, right? So, all right, Roger says my students get confused on subnetting when using the book material. I show them how it works in binary. Yeah, and so that's how I show people, right? We get the dry erase board out, we break down the octets, we talk about how bits work, flipping bits on and off, how to reserve them for hosts versus networks, and then usually boom, yeah, it clicks. T and Bighorn says the weird thing was it was so sporadic. One customer of mine couldn't receive tones, so you couldn't pick options in their IVR, and the other one, the voices sound like they were underwater. Yeah, so yeah, the DDoS attacks they cause all kinds of weird issues to be happening. Yeah, make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button. Let the YouTube algorithm know that you do enjoy, excuse me, the content. Good morning, Sideways Bob Dog from Ireland. Good afternoon in Ireland. Good morning here. Daryl, you're not late. Daryl says that he met some cool dudes at the Best Buy GPU drop yesterday. Man, I'm glad that none of my kids want to camp out at Best Buy to get video cards right now. JH says PF Sense for HIPAA offices. So let's have a let's have a talk about compliance, right? So I actually set up a pretty big Unify installation a few years back for a podiatry group. I was contracted out to do it, and at the time, yeah, HIPAA's really weird. Like you're not supposed to use shared services and things like that. So their Unify controller, was on site, was not on a VPS. But at the time, the USG for small offices, you're talking 2 receptionists, 2 doctors, maybe a PA. These things were meeting the litmus test. Maybe not anymore. So JH, let me know what you were thinking. Why you don't think that this will work for a small office? Is it because I mean there is IDS IPS technically, but I mean a lot of these places, you might have a 50 meg internet connection. This thing's going to work fine. The firewall rules on this thing are fantastic. So let me know what you were thinking about that. DNS service says today the max VLAN is around 60 in the USG Pro. No, so it's not just in the USG Pro. There is actually you have to go back and look at a video of mine. I did a video on this. There's an actual limit of networks in total that Unify would handle. Now I don't know if that's been corrected going forward in new releases. I would have to actually guess that the answer to that is probably no, because it's probably one of those things that, I mean, why buy a UDM Pro or a UDM Pro SE or whatever else is out there that's got 10 gig interfaces? Why not be able to create more than 64 VLANs on it? When I can get an Edge Router X and I can create as many VLANs, I can run the VLANs all the way till I run out of VLANs, right? Good morning after dark 2:30. David Anderson says if the VoIP phones fail, the main number rolls to a single cell. Most folks have their person. Yeah, but so during a DDoS attack, if you watched how things were being attacked, so if you go to status.bandwidth.com and you sign up for that service, you can watch how the attackers were actually attacking things, right? So they would attack the service where you couldn't port numbers out. And then they're very strategic about how they were knocking out services. And it's my understanding that on some of the providers, the auto forwarding didn't work either. So, you know, you're not going to see a doctor's office. You're not going to see most businesses switch over to cell phones only. Somebody told me desk phones were going away, and and I just had to laugh because in 2020 we installed a record amount of handsets, right? So handsets are not going anywhere on desks for quite a while. Good morning, Dave Robertson. Roger says, I teach cybersecurity IT at our local high school career center. Had a student pass a Network Plus on Thursday. Pretty cool to have students leave high school with these certs. That's awesome, Roger. So uh, um, in my day job, we have interns from a local high school career center, and they get a cybersecurity certificate. I can't remember the name of it, but that is pretty cool to have students leaving high school with the certifications. I've got, I've got my A plus, Net plus, Security plus, blah blah blah, alphabet soup, right? It is definitely good for those young kids to be able to get past the HR filters, having those certifications. Martin is clarifying for us here. Thanks for answering the question. Small dental office, no more than 10 workstations, no need for fancy networking, routing needs, or port forwards. Do you need intrusion detection, intrusion prevention? And what is the speed of your internet, Martin? Give me those two things, and then I'll give you a better answer. Yeah, so JH brings up a great point, and I've got a couple customers that are in the Unify ecosystem, but they're connecting. So I just worked on one last week where we connected this to a Palo Alto. And actually, if you can hang with me for just a second, give me just a second. I'm going to step around the desk. One of these days, I'm going to do a tour of the office for you, but give me just a second. I'm just going to step around the desk and I'm going to grab my Palo Alto firewall. Okay, so I've got a couple firewalls laying around. This is my PA 200 that I bought. So this, I don't need anything crazy. Do you all want to see Palo Alto videos? If you want to see Palo Alto videos, I didn't know how much of a demand there was for it, but I have clients who have all kinds of stuff. Like I said, this is my PA 200. Can I get some focus here? And this thing, even though it's a little slow, will outperform every other firewall from a feature standpoint that I have. And it's just, I mean, there's a reason that Palo Alto is the #1 firewall brand, and that the company is so valuable. Their stuff works. They've got support. They've got, the add-on services and things like that. Yeah, Palo Alto. When people are like, "What firewall?" and I'm like, "Is money an object?" If they're like, "No," then I'm like, "Palo Alto." So, if there is an interest in the Palo Alto videos, I will do Palo Alto videos. But if there's no real draw for it, we'll have to see. All right, so back to the comments here. Oh, but that's what I was saying. So JH brought up the site-to-site VPN, right? So I've got, and here's the thing: I don't support JSON files. I don't know any vendor who will professionally charge you, and I'm sure they're out there, right? But I mean, I don't know anybody who supports JSON files because it's so dangerous. And when I say dangerous, that's relative, right? But like every time they update the controller, something breaks if you're using a JSON file. And but I have a client who has the need. One side is a police station. They have a need to make these two things talk, and the security settings that this needs are not supported in the UI of this. So I shouldn't say that. The standards that are used by the police department to create the connection is not configurable in the UI of this device, right? So Unify doesn't have the options that we need. However, from the command line, those options are available. And I very clearly in the email, in the customer became a customer, I was very clear up front. We don't support JSON files, and we could create a file for you to go in and copy and paste if the VPN breaks, like if the USG takes a provision or reboots, those options go away. Customer was 100% fine with that. You know, the thing's on a battery backup, the network's pretty static, but I was very clear up front, no JSON files. We'll create a script for you. You can SSH and run the script. And the VPNs are working fine. I actually have 2 customers that we did that for in the same week, which was weird. But yeah, JH is right. And I've even had customers that had to rip out the Unify, which the reason I have this Palo Alto is because 3 years ago, I had a customer who was getting hooked up with Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway's CISO wrote a letter saying that Unify does not meet the security needs. And I'm assuming it's because of the options that can't be configured in the UI. And these are things that Ubiquity should be thinking about, right? How many times have you heard me tell the story about how we had to rip out a Unify network and install Palo Alto, which is how I ended up with the Palo Alto. I went out and bought one so that I knew what I was getting myself into. And that's how I learn, right? Just buy something, put my hands on it. That's how I learn best. You get like these kids, if we can get these kids that are coming into the industry, if we can get them to have a good conceptual base, a good conceptual dance floor, and they will cha through. I just made that up through their networking career, right? All right, so, but yeah, so you know, pfSense, OpenSense, you get all of those different options in the interface. And After Dark is correct. Depending on the requirements, you pick the tool you need for the project required, and that is why when you hear people say we don't deploy these at all, no, we will still deploy these depending on the need. Sometimes this is all you need. We are seeing shipping times, by the way, for Edge Router X's. They're into 2022. Martin, you said that you have yes for IDS, IPS, 100 meg up or 100 meg down, 35 meg up. So this is going to cap out. This is the USG 3, which, by the way, if you've never opened one of these, is pretty much the exact same hardware as the Edge Router Lite. So there's actually a USB key inside of this USG that has the operating system, as scary as that is. Most of the time I see the Ethernet ports go on these, the caps blow. Very few of those things have actually happened just with it just running. However, this will cap you then at 85 megabits down if you're going to run IDS, IPS, right? So if you can take that 15 meg loss off the top, these are the kinds of things we're going to talk about in the training. That's going to be coming up. These are all the kinds of things that we're going to cover. Like, what are the limitations of this? When do we use this versus when do I use an edge router versus when do I go to a different brand? Those are all things that are coming up in the training. But yeah, this is going to cap you at 85 meg. So if you don't mind that loss, now keep in mind, it is just not an 85 meg cap to the internet, is an 85 meg cap between VLANs as well. Something else they don't tell you, right? So you get speed cap there. If you've only got the one VLAN, then you're fine. All right. So I hope, Martin, that answers your question. We kind of went the long way to answer it, but I hope you you got that. Yeah. David Anderson says, just got fiber at the house, 200 plus. Should I stick with the USG or try an Omada router? Well, the Omada does have more features exposed. The big difference between these two devices, obviously, is the UI, but the firewall rules on this, they process the same, but they're configured differently, right? So you have to figure out the manufacturer's vernacular, so to speak. These firewall rules, if you've worked with these, this is easy. This is simple. This, you just have to figure out what TP-Link wants you to do. But we use a lot of these because we can't get Edge Router X's, and the firewall rules are actually just as granular, and I really actually am enjoying these. This is the TLR605, has no IDS, IPS. There are situations where it'd be nice to have that, but it's not required. These things are like 49 bucks. Doesn't have to be joined to the controller. Works great. All right, let's see. So it looks like there's a few folks that would love some Palo Alto videos. I'll have to see what I can do. You'll notice I'm behind on, um, you can notice I'm behind on content. So after dark, can you clarify on that comment for me? You say, "LOL, Unify, think about anything." I think I understand what you're saying there. Tony says you can't beat hands-on learning experiences. I agree with that. JH placed an order for a QFX the other day, and the lead time was right at 33 weeks. Yeah, so we're still seeing crazy amounts of lead time on this product. Yeah. Martin, you can go down into the description of this live stream, and there's a link to the newsletter that talks about the Ubiquity training. It actually kind of like talks about the bullet points of what we're going to be going over, um, and then talks about the Grand Stream training. So yeah, I've tried to get Grand Stream to let me certify people at the professional level remotely, and it has to be on site. And we may be the only Grand Stream vendor. Well, I'll say I don't know, because I don't talk to a lot of other Grand Stream vendors. I talk to Grand Stream techs, and I share in the community like we do. But as far as competitors go, I don't know who's doing on-site training. Practical. Oh, hey, Jeremy. Jeremy says, I'm all for Palo Alto. I've had zero exposure to it. You know what, Jeremy? Here's the thing, right, man? If you get an extra 200, 300 bucks, and you want to throw a really good firewall in your LAN, see if you can go out and find one that's never been activated on, because a lot of times what people do is they'll buy a bunch of these, and they never get activated. So you can buy them pretty cheap, and then if you need to get your yearly service, you can get it activated. So sometimes though, you got to be careful, because sometimes companies consider things like that gray market. And what's funny is, so let's talk about gray market. I'm just going to get on this hobby horse for just a second, right? And Cisco is one of the biggest opponents to the gray market. However, what they're not telling you is what they consider gray market. Let's say, Jeremy, that you hit the lotto, right? And now you've got an extra $100 million sitting there, and you're like, I'm going to start a company. I'm going to sell all this equipment, but you don't want to become an official reseller, right? You can actually, so that's where that right there, that's where the rub is, right? Being an actual reseller versus not. But what Cisco will do is Cisco will take your $100 million. They will give you really great pricing on the hardware at that purchase point. And then they'll tell you that you are gray market, and that you may not have warranty, and you may not have any of this other stuff. So, I mean, if there was ever a blatant example of corporate greed, um, which capitalism is great, but at some point, like, these tricks that they play like that, right? That is greed. Yeah, we'll take your 100 million, but now you're gray market. Now, let's not do that. Let's see. I actually don't know what the speed on that Palo Alto is as the gateway. We're gonna have to check that out. David Anderson, if you're not running IDS or IPS, yes, the USG will handle 200 megabits just fine. Let's see. Tony says that in his experience with the TP-Link router, he finds that the options are limited. Yeah, I think the vernacular causes some issues with that. After Dark says, I feel like every time Unify takes one step forward, they take two steps back. Just some of their hardware choices are kind of leaving me scratching my head. Yeah. And then After Dark says their edge side of things, I feel, has been left in the dust. Unfortunately, we haven't seen any good updates there. And JH is absolutely correct. Once you get a Palo Alto at at an enterprise, it's really hard to move to something different. Yeah. Yeah. Good morning, Brian Murray. All right. So we'll do some Palo Alto intro videos. Alan says, hi from Ireland, 1 gig down, 200 meg up, fiber to the house. Have a USG with all the fancy stuff turned off, and it's been flawless. That's the thing. Yeah. Consider changing the ONT to a Ubiquiti one. Is it worth it? If you're, no, not really. But if your provider supports it, you could do that. I've seen where some providers allow the ONT to be switched out for the Ubiquiti one. Some of them don't. Are you still recommending NextDNS? I use and recommend DNSfilter.com. JH says, I quoted out a core chassis for a project and Cisco was 100,000 over Aruba for the same specs. Yeah. Yep. Cisco is still counting on that marketing machine. Get them from the dinner table, right? So, well, folks, it has been a morning and I want to thank you all for being here. Got some stuff need to take care of. Got to hop in the shower, comb my hair, brush my teeth, finish my coffee, do all that good stuff. I want to thank you for being here. Hit that thumbs up button. All of our affiliate links are down below. The newsletter link for the training. I am taking interest forms for the Grand Stream training until October 3rd. I may have to support that, but we've got to be really, I may have to extend that, but I've got to be really careful with that timeline. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to lock in, group rates and a training center and all that stuff. So if you want to take the 1-day training for Ubiquiti, that is in there as well. I want to thank you all for being here. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Maybe if I can get this stream to end. There we go.